Look, I know this isn't the review that you wanted, but I'm next in line to get Marvel's Avengers at the library. It could arrive any time. I need some more short crap to talk about. War of the Worlds is an H.G. Wells science fiction novel from 1897 about Martians invading the Earth, nearly wiping out mankind with vastly superior technology, and then all dying because they don't have natural immunities to Earth-borne viruses. Not that that's topical these days or anything. It was one of the very first works of fiction to involve extraterrestrial life, and is one of the most influential science fiction stories ever. But it's most famous for being adapted into a radio drama in 1938 that caused riots by people who thought the invasion was real, and about every decade someone readapts it into a movie, TV series, or comic book. And now those adaptations include video games with the indie title Gray Skies, a War of the Worlds story, available now on Steam and every friggin' modern console, but for the record I'm playing it on the Switch. So let's see how an indie studio takes the epic, grand scale, and apocalyptic story and century-spanning legacy of War of the Worlds and flushes it all down the crapper. The game begins with Harper, our main character, on an airplane that starts to crash. I don't get why she's the only person on the plane, but there you go. Also, get a load of the game's dreadful texture pop-in. The game keeps zooming in on newspapers that are friggin' blank. The game then cuts to 2 weeks earlier as Harper is at a market buying milk, cereal, and toilet paper, and then it cuts back to the plane crash. There are no more flashbacks the entire rest of the game, so apparently it was just absolutely critical to the story that we know Harper bought groceries before the alien invasion. Well, that and we needed to fit in this note that you find in the office. Due to the ongoing situation with COVID, all employees must wear a mask. I know it sucks, but at least we're not being invaded by Martians. Well, it was nice of the developers to leave a note warning that their game sucks. Also in the grocery store, a loud and really out-of-place indie pop song is playing the entire level. And then after the plane crash, another indie song plays as you wander down a path while nothing happens.
Broken man with his bed in hell.
Is this a video game or a musician's demo tape? You wander until you reach a farm. You have to go into the house, explore until you get a flashlight and a key to the slaughterhouse, go to the slaughterhouse to get a car key, find a wheel to open the garage, and track down 5 Martian wheats to get enough experience points to purchase an upgrade that allows you to put water inside of bottles so that you can solve the puzzle that leads to the wheel. Sounds simple enough, except I was stuck here for over an hour because there is no signposting whatsoever, and I didn't know that you can run until after I looked up a walkthrough because the game doesn't tell you and it's mapped to the stupid-ass L1 button. Speaking of stupid controls, you can pick up rocks and throw them around the environment. It's on you to figure out how, though, because the prompt that the game gives you is wrong. And when you finally get to the car, you drive down an empty road while you're forced to listen to another pop song. There's a road I'd like to tell you about. It's in my hometown. Lakeshore Drive the road is called, and it'll take you up or down. From rats on up to riches, 15 minutes you can fly. Pretty blue lights along the way help you ride on by. And the blue lights shining with a heavenly grace help you ride on by. What? I don't want my video copyright claimed. And physics is borked as at one point my car hits a small bump in the road and does a somersault. Nice. After ages of aimlessly dicking around, something does finally, eventually happen. Your car breaks down, you find an auto parts shop, and inside is the first actual enemy of the game, a crazy guy with a pipe. In War of the Worlds. Odd, but a common element of War of the Worlds adaptations is being trapped inside with someone who's lost their fudge, so I'll let it slide. The game brings up a text box making it clear that Harper is a weakling who can't take anybody in combat, so you have to sneak around the crazy man and drop a car on him with some jacks. Luckily, you have Batman's detective vision to tell you where he is at all times, and also luckily, as you can see here when I evaded him, he's a blind imbecile! So what, you're just supposed to take the game's word for it that the AI is so stupid that it will lose track of you from ducking behind cover in plain sight? That is not intuitive. Then you drive to a deserted town, which actually has some damn good atmosphere and haunting music to accompany me wandering around doing nothing. And eventually we come across some big pods embedded in the streets, and lightning strikes to spawn enemies. We're finally going to fight some aliens. Oh, no, wait, it's 2 more crazy guys with pipes. You sneak past them because Harper won't grab a knife or something to defend herself, and you have 0 offensive capabilities of any kind. And you sneak onto another street infested with crazy people. You run into a guy named Jack who tells Harper about the alien invasion that she somehow knew nothing about, and you have to go to some caverns to reach a hall, and in the caverns you hide from more crazy people! What the hell? So, in pretty much every War of the Worlds adaptation that I've ever seen, the Martians attack with UFOs, or giant 3-legged walkers called tripods, big-ass machines that fire big honkin' heat rays that vaporize everybody instantly. But Gray Skies goes a different direction. Here the Martians attack with a zombie plague. I'm not even kidding. In this game, the Martians fire a bunch of cylinders that emit a gas that mutates and brainwashes people into zombies, and that's what you fight the entire damn game. And I'm just gonna let you in on a little secret, because across both the original story and every friggin' adaptation that has followed in the full century since, there are no zombies in War of the Worlds! They completely made up this zombie crap so they'd have an excuse to cheap out on development, because zombies are piss easy to code, piss easy to design around, piss easy to model, and just piss in general. And that's the generous explanation. The more likely scenario is that this dev team was just making a generic stealth game about a zombie apocalypse, realized nobody was going to buy their crap game, and they slapped some tripods onto the loading screens to call it War of the Worlds so that people would notice that they exist. Some of the enemies are even still blatantly designed to look like run-of-the-mill generic zombies. They didn't even try to hide it. The stealth gameplay is complete crap. The enemies walk in rock-simple and easily predictable patrol patterns that never break. They never look behind them, so once you observe long enough to know that they won't turn around, you can just follow enemies around the room and you'll be fine. You have detective vision to observe enemies with ease, and you move quickly enough while crouching that noise is never a problem. I'm the kind of wuss who sucks at stealth games because I play way too conservatively, and I never ran into trouble. I just watch the enemies long enough to see one loop of the paths they take, and then it's piss easy to stay out of sight because they're zombies and they lumber so slowly. You get warnings if an enemy can spot you so that you have plenty of time to hide, and even if you get caught, you can outrun the zombies and avoid them with ease. There are several encounters where you can just flat-ass run through all the enemies because zombies disintegrate once you hit a predetermined exit point. It's seriously not until the last 2 levels that enemies cover one enough in their patrols to where I needed to use items, but by then I had unlocked flashbangs that instantly make all nearby enemies completely lose track of you. The gameplay is slow, trudging, and tedious, but it's easy! There is a pathetic grand total of 2 enemy types across the entire game. The other enemies are called the Strongly Controlled, and are surrounded by lightning despite not having any powers related to lightning. These enemies are blind, but can detect movement and have really strong hearing. Enemies that track you by sound in a game where you are silent while crouching! Brilliant! The game flat-ass tells you that it's coded so badly that controlled zombies cannot see or damage you if you're standing still, so even if, somehow, you get caught by these crap-ass zombies, they basically can't actually damage you. So one enemy type you can just outrun and the other is borderline harmless. Did the developers even know how their own game works? Maybe the idea is that one enemy requires movement and the other requires standing still, but they never mix the 2 types together, so you just end up with both enemies sucking balls and having pretty much the same 2 encounters again and again and again. There are item crafting and upgrade systems where you can scavenge rocks, materials, and XP-giving Martian weeds in the levels. Rocks may not work unless you hit a solid surface, but if you throw them to cause a distraction, the enemy just walks over, takes his sweet-ass time, doesn't even look around, and then heads back to their rigid patrol. You can level up to unlock new items to craft, starting with water jugs that do nothing, and taser bombs that you can throw into a pool of water from a jug to stun enemies. I barely ever used rocks and only once tried the water taser combo because the game's throwing controls and mechanics are horrifically clunky. Your cursor has a tendency to just lurch to the side, and it often shifts right before you actually throw an object. It's so temperamental that if there are any bits of cover around you, odds are good that they will block your shot and you won't hit shit. Plus, throwing a rock while crouching is apparently just not a thing that's physically possible for Harper, and plus the game will constantly unequip throwing weapons unless you remember to press up on the D-pad first. You can also spend XP on general upgrades for Harper, but apart from the second one that doubles your inventory size, they're pretty much useless too. Just trust me, you want to dump your upgrades into crafting, and I'll explain why later. Also, the game feels really buggy between this zombie that just decided to stop living and froze in place, and the game marking the town level finished even though I died before reaching the exit. Although granted, I won't complain on that one. I seriously don't know what to say about the individual levels. The underground cavern is just you wandering around looking for keys while evading the same zombies, exactly the same as every other level in the game. I keep running into large rooms that have absolutely nothing inside them, making me wonder if the game was unfinished or something. Picking up crap for crafting and looking for keys between rudimentary stealth encounters is the entire game. I've got nothing to work with here. Although after the cavern level is a campsite that's pretty much entirely enemy encounters, and I had to repeat 3 of the enemy groups because I died and the game hadn't dropped a checkpoint because it's a dick! But at the end of this camp that I can't remember why we're even here in the first place, holy effing shit! A tripod! Something War of the Worlds related actually happened in this War of the Worlds game! And it's the worst part of the game by a mile! After the tripod blows you the hell up repeatedly until you figure out that you're supposed to work 4 computers to open up the exit, you get to a Crash Bandicoot level where you run towards the camera away from the tripod. I swear it took me at least 50 tries to finish this level because there are several layers of trial and error to getting past this damn thing. You can't dodge the pod's lasers. You have to hide behind obstacles, except the lasers blow right through the obstacles and kill you anyway. You have to run out from cover as soon as the laser fires, but you have to make sure that you run sideways because the lasers will move forward and can hit you anyway. And if you accidentally undershoot it and run out of cover early in your eagerness, you get shot and die. At least a dozen deaths were due to getting stuck in walls and unable to move, which just happens if you accidentally run too headlong into a surface. You about have to memorize the level's layout because some terrain that looks like cover isn't actually cover and vice versa, and some pieces of cover you're meant to skip or else the tripod gains too much ground on you and just shoots you over the terrain. I didn't realize that I was screwing myself because literally the first barrier that you see is a trap to let the tripod gain ground on you. The only reason I eventually beat this level was I just kind of realized on accident that this game's terrible programming is on your side. See, regardless of what the graphics say, you seem to have about a 2-second grace period where the laser will not hurt you even if it slams into your face after it's hit cover, which you can exploit that time to make the garbage-ized controls and reaction time a little more workable. And after this one segment that's only supposed to last a minute or two, the tripod leaves and you pop out at an almost completely empty refugee camp where you wander around gabbing keys and go right back to sneaking around boring-ass zombies. Thank crap! The thrill of something actually happening almost gave me a heart attack. You get to the mansion that I guess Jack told you to find, only you discover that everyone's already evacuated, so you wander around a completely empty mansion until a few zombies spawn at the very end. And I don't know if it's just me, but does this look like the West Mansion from Resident Evil to anyone else? That's not an homage, that's an insult! And these ending rooms are just embarrassing. One zombie walking in a slow circle that you can just follow behind and never get spotted. Eventually you get dumped out into a catacombs level, which then dumps out into a sewer level, all of which are completely devoid of any enemies. Like a half an hour of total dead air until an encounter with those stupid-ass blind zombies in the sewer's control rooms. And the only reason I'm stopping to point out this identical encounter is because I ran into a hilarious bug. Remember how those strongly controlled enemies aren't supposed to be able to see or hurt you if you stand still? Well, this bitch didn't get the memo. She goes apeshit pounding on me, but not dealing any damage, until eventually I realize that I can still move, and she doesn't hurt me. So I just head to the exit with this psycho bitch wailing on me and doing absolutely nothing the entire damn way. So this is what happens when the enemy AI actually tries to be competent. Then you just appear at a boat dock level because if you hadn't noticed, the game has no story. You just wander from one random location to another looking for an evacuation, I guess. Seriously, I haven't skipped over a single damn thing that's happened. I defy you to relay to me any kind of narrative that this game has had at all. By this point, I was swimming in red weeds with which to buy upgrades, so even though the game was finally ramping up the difficulty with overlapping enemy patterns forcing you to actually use some items or have really careful timing, I could just drop flashbangs and immediately lose anybody who was chasing after me. And that's when I couldn't just run straight to the exit completely unimpeded because I don't think the zombies can go through the many doors in this level. That kid from Zombieland was right. Cardio very important in an apocalypse. You get to a ferry that sails off to somewhere, but then the game remembers this is supposed to be War of the Worlds and a tripod sinks the boat, and then you just wake up marooned on some island. This level has enemies spot and jump you pretty much as soon as you step out, but I've got a secret weapon now. See, if you dump enough XP to get all of the crafting upgrades, you gain the ability to build rubber bombs, which instantly disintegrate any enemies around you. Most piddly-ass tiny explosion ever, but it permanently kills off enemies instantly. So, Harper won't grab a knife and stab zombies, but she'll scavenge together the ingredients for makeshift explosives that she somehow knows how to make and blow them the hell up? Yeah, these bombs pretty much completely break the game, and there's a New Game Plus option so that you can start out with them, if for some dreadful reason you're ever tempted to replay this crap. Harper just happens to stumble across a cabin where someone just happened to be building an EMP grenade, and then Harper just happens to get captured and brought to the inside of a tripod so that she can use the EMP grenade to kill it. And then the game cuts to another triumphant musical number over the destroyed town from earlier, overrun by tripods and Martian goop. What tone are you? So I started walking her way. She belonged to that man Jose. And I knew, yes I knew I should leave, but then I heard her say, come a little bit closer, you're my kind of man. So big and so strong, come a little bit closer. I'm all alone and the night is so long. Harper decides to chill out with Jack, that guy we met for like a minute several hours ago, and the game ends. Developed by 2 people and QA tested by a 3rd. I am not surprised. Gray Skies is a complete waste of time. Aside from a few surface level references like the lead character getting on a ferry at some point and Martians attacking with black smoke, the game has nothing to do with War of the Worlds and has no story to speak of. In fact, if the skies weren't occasionally gray, this entire title would be a lie. But the game itself is just kind of pathetic. It's baby's first stealth game with nearly brain-dead enemies, only 2 enemy types, enemies that barely seem like the devs knew how their own game played, and nothing going for it but a rock-simple distraction mechanic and items that are so clunky and badly implemented that you don't even want to use them. At least not until the items get so overpowered that they break the game. The best I can say is that the music is decent and a few rare points it has a tense and suspenseful atmosphere, but trust me, that ain't enough. Not with all those horror games that create tension and suspense without playing like pig crap. Well, that filled a week on the show. Now what am I going to do until Avengers come in? Well, you know that Gilson B. Ponce has another video game out. You can always do that, I suppose. We can dance if you want to. We can leave your friends behind. 'Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine. See, we can go if you want to. Place where they will never find. And we can act like we come from out of this world. Leave the real one far behind. We can dance.